Imagine waking to the hush of pine needles underfoot and the soft creak of beams warmed by centuries of sun. A single window lets in the first light, filtered through ivy and old glass. It falls in quiet patches across the wooden floor, touching the curled corners of half-bound books and coils of binding twine. A kettle simmers gently on a small iron stove, the scent of rosemary and pine mingling in the stillness. The bookbinder rises slowly. There is no alarm, no urgency. Only the forest's rhythms, the rustle of leaves, a distant bird call, the low murmur of a brook beyond the roots. His robe is thick wool, soft from use, smelling faintly of paper and oak smoke. He pulls it around himself and pads barefoot across the worn floorboards, each one familiar, remembered by his soles. The kettle whistles low. He pours the hot water over dried chamomile and fennel, watching steam twist like old stories around the rim of his clay cup. Outside, the forest is just beginning to stir. Squirrels dart across mossy branches. A raven calls from the bell tower of an abandoned chapel now half claimed by ivy. All of it feels far, yet close, like a memory returning in fragments. The bookbinder opens the library doors, letting in the breath of the woods. Cool air rushes in, laced with cedar and damp earth. Books line every wall, resting in nooks carved into the trunks of living trees. Some are wrapped in linen, others are shelved by shape, by scent, by the feel of their covers in hand. He knows them not by title, but by presence. He walks past a desk where an old inkwell rests beside a bundle of goose feathers. Dust motes dance lazily in the golden light. Suspended like time itself has paused to breathe. The warmth from the stove has begun to wake the scent of the pine beams. Rich, earthy, like ancient parchment stored in wood. A fox watches from a distance. The binder nods softly, acknowledging her like an old friend. She blinks slowly and vanishes between two fern-covered stones. He walks the aisle of his forest-bound scriptorium, fingertips grazing spines that whisper back. A leather-bound atlas murmurs faintly of ancient coasts. A prayer book hums in quiet Latin, its gold leaf still bright in the shadows. A bestiary thumps gently, as if dreaming of its beasts. The morning is for preparation, not labor. The tools must be warmed, the glue softened, the quills shaped. He unwraps a roll of vellum, tracing its grain with reverence. These materials are not mere things. They are companions, silent and patient. Some he has used for decades, their handles shaped to the curve of his palm. He sharpens his knife on an old stone, turning it slowly, rhythmically, in circles. Each scrape sings into the hush. Then he oils the brass press, its levers and gears gleaming softly in the filtered light. He tests the balance of the weight, feeling for any forgotten resistance. He moves with care, with memory. Each action is both ritual and necessity. His hands are slow not from age, but from respect. Here, nothing is rushed. Even the clock, an old hourglass with blue sand, moves quietly, deliberately. No ticking, just the faint, slow fall of time. From the shelf above the work table, he pulls a book half mended. Its spine is broken, its pages loose but proud. It smells of lilac and dust, of time gone tender. He places it on the bench and lays his palm across the cover. The texture is familiar, the weight a comfort. He takes a breath, deep and slow, anchoring himself to this moment. Outside, the wind brushes the window panes with pine needles. A bird lands near the door, pecking once, then flying away. The forest does not intrude. It waits, breathes, observes. It seems to understand the slowness of the craft, the patience it takes to make something last. On the edge of the table, a small bell made of antler and bronze chimes lightly when the door nudges open, a soft breeze slipping in, stirring a few paper scraps into lazy spirals. With his tea in hand, the bookbinder sits for a while without moving. Not in idleness, but in welcome. The day is not to be conquered. It is to be listened to, one quiet breath at a time. The tools wait in patient silence, each one resting in its worn leather cradle, smelling faintly of beeswax and ink. The bookbinder begins his day not with haste, but with reverence. He places each item carefully on the linen-covered table, the bone folder, the curved scissors, the paste brush wrapped in horsehair, and the awl worn smooth by decades of quiet use. He lifts the damaged volume from the bench. Its spine is frayed, cords exposed like veins in old bark. The pages, once gilded, are faded and curled at the edges, yet in its wounded state, the book still breathes with quiet pride. It is not broken, it is waiting. First, the old glue must be softened. He lights a small brazier beneath a copper pot and mixes hide glue and water, stirring gently with a carved birch spoon. The scent is earthy and rich, like boiled wood and the memory of long-decayed parchment. It fills the space, familiar as the warmth of firelight. He dampens a linen cloth and lays it over the spine. The steam rises slowly, loosening years of hardened binding. With delicate fingers, he begins to peel away the remains. Each tug is measured, each tear avoided. The book does not resist. It yields in small size, as though relieved to be touched with care. When the spine is bare, he prepares new cords, hemp twined by hand in the previous winter. He threads them through the press, aligning the book's signatures, those folded gatherings of pages, with quiet precision. Each is sewn anew, his needle moving in and out like breath, like heartbeat. The thread pulls tight. The pages draw together, a silent reunion. Outside, the wind shifts, rattling pine branches gently against the high glass panes. The forest watches, but does not hurry. Inside, the only sounds are thread whispering through paper, the soft creak of the stool, the crackle of fire beneath the glue pot. He stops briefly, stretching his hands. The joints ache, but not in protest, in memory. This work is slow for a reason. Each stitch not only binds pages, but marks time. Here, time is stitched into permanence. Once the sewing is complete, he applies the new spine lining, a strip of woven linen soaked in fresh paste. He presses it gently with the bone folder, smoothing it into place. Then the covers, old oak boards wrapped in softened leather, are gently aligned and glued. He presses the book between wooden boards weighted with river stones. The pressure will marry its new form, make whole what was once loose and fragile. While it sets, he does not wait idly. He prepares a small bowl of pigment from crushed ochre and walnut oil, mixing slowly with a bristle brush. This ink will be used to touch the faded letters in the prologue, not to replace them, but to honor what remains. The script is a narrow hand, neat and ancient. He traces each letter with steady breath, restoring not with invention, but with listening. The page tells him what it needs. Sometimes he hums a low note while he works, a tune passed from a long-gone teacher who once said, "Ink remembers more than we do." A soft knock echoes from somewhere in the library, a pine cone falling against the stone sill. He glances toward the sound and smiles faintly. Nothing is urgent here. Even interruptions feel like invitations to pause. He returns to his brushwork, careful not to let the ink pool. The parchment swells slightly as it accepts the color. It is a conversation, not a command. By midday, the book is whole again, not perfect, no, never perfect, but mended, meaningful, and strong in its imperfections. It now carries its history with grace. The bookbinder wraps it gently in linen and places it on a shelf near the window. Light falls across the cover like a benediction. It glows faintly in the sun. Before he turns away, he opens the book one last time to its first page, running a thumb over the inscription scrawled centuries ago. He reads it softly, not aloud, but within himself, honoring the voice that once wrote it, the hands that once held it. He returns to his bench, hands stained with pigment, thread, and memory. He does not speak. There is no one here to hear, but even if there were, the silence would remain. It is the deepest kind of language. The sun has risen to its peak, though it barely breaks the tree canopy above. Shafts of golden light pour through leaves, making mosaics of shifting green and gold upon the stone path that leads away from the forest library. The bookbinder steps outside, cradling a wooden bowl filled with warm barley and herbs, his midday meal simple, quiet. The air is rich with the scent of sun-warmed pine, fresh earth, and distant wildflowers. He walks slowly toward a bench beneath a sprawling oak tree, the kind with branches wide enough to hold decades of birdsong and moss. The bench creaks beneath him, familiar in its welcome. A breeze stirs the leaves above, and light flickers across his lap like candlelight on vellum. He eats without rush, savoring each bite. The meal is quiet, barley softened with broth, a wedge of aged cheese, and 2 slices of oat bread baked yesterday. Nearby, bees hum around flowering time. Their sound is steady, persistent, like a gentle drum beneath the silence. After eating, he sips cool water from a clay mug, its surface rough, formed by the same hands that once repaired the psalter with the missing corner. He traces the tiny crack along the rim, familiar and unthreatening. Imperfection lives here like an old friend. He leans back and looks up. Through the leaves, patches of blue sky peek down, blinking like a patient eye. The light glides slowly, shadow to shadow, from page to page of the ground below. There is no clock, only the progression of leaf patterns shifting across the grass. A small sparrow hops near his foot, pecking at breadcrumbs. He doesn't move. The bird seems to trust him, or perhaps it simply recognizes stillness. Around them, the forest breathes in long rhythms, wind in, quiet out. After a time, he rises and takes the long path toward the outer herb garden. Along the trail, he passes old markers, a stone with a smooth hollow where rain collects, a stump where mushrooms bloom in soft tufts, a patch of marjoram grown wild. Each is known, each is seen. The herb garden is a square framed with twisted willow branches. Inside, the rows are more suggestion than structure. Chamomile, mint, lavender, sage. Their scents rise as the sun warms their oil-rich leaves. He runs his fingers gently through them, brushing each plant like a blessing. He gathers a few stems of lemon balm and calendula, tucking them into a folded cloth. These will be dried on the windowsill, used later for tea or salve. There is no waste. Every leaf, every petal has a purpose, even if that purpose is only to perfume the air. A dragonfly hovers above the garden, its wings catching sunlight like glass. It pauses mid-air, then darts toward the edge of the trees, vanishing into shadow. He sits again on a small stool near the rosemary bush, letting the quiet of midday settle deep in his chest. The wind carries with it the distant sound of a waterfall, a gentle hush, like the closing of a book. It is not near, but it feels close, like a song heard in another room. A few clouds drift lazily overhead, changing the temperature of light on the garden. The warmth lessens, then returns, as if the sky is exhaling slowly, letting the day stretch out in full. The bookbinder closes his eyes. He does not sleep, but rests in stillness. The body held lightly, the mind gently open. No thoughts push, no tasks press. He is here, entirely, the kind of presence that only slowness allows. After a while, he opens his eyes and notices a vine climbing the garden gate. It was not so tall last week. Nature, even in its gentlest moods, always moves, not fast, but with certainty. He rises and makes his way back toward the library, steps slow, sure, unhurried. On his way, he bends to pick up a fallen leaf, a red-brown maple, edges curling. He turns it over once, then places it in his pocket, not for use, just to remember that even in quiet, things change. The shadows have shifted. The sun now angles through the westward boughs. Light dapples the stone steps leading back to the door. He pauses there, turning once to look at the garden, the trees, the midday world held in gentle balance. The breeze brushes his sleeve as he reaches for the door, another small sign of passage, of motion without demand. Then, with a hand on the weathered wood of the library's door, he steps inside once more, carrying the hush of midday back into the world of pages and binding thread. The library's interior breathes coolness. The scent of leather, paper, and pine smoke is richer now, deepened by the sun's warmth outside. The bookbinder moves slowly through the aisles, his fingertips trailing the air just above the shelves, not touching, but close enough to feel the stories press gently outward, waiting. The shelves rise irregularly, fitted to the curvature of the tree trunks they nestle against. No two are alike. Some lean slightly, others reach high toward rafters hung with cobwebs like faded lace. There is no order imposed by alphabet or topic. The organization is older than that, by feeling, by memory, by mood. He stops before a tall volume wrapped in cloth the color of smoke. He does not open it, not today, but he lets his hand rest on the spine for a moment. Inside are stories told in the form of prayers, each one copied by a different hand over centuries. The ink smells faintly of myrrh. Further down, a stack of thin books bound in green twine leans sideways like a row of tired friends. He straightens them, gently nudging the bundle until it balances again. The effort is not functional, it is tender. High above, tucked behind a knotted beam, rests a box of loose pages, drafts, scraps, forgotten beginnings. He remembers placing them there long ago, unable to throw them out. Even half-born stories have weight. He pulls a stool toward a low shelf and kneels beside it. The books here are small, many of them handwritten, their ink faded to the color of dry leaves. One opens with a soft creak. Inside, a pressed violet flakes away into his palm. He holds it for a moment, then lets it fall to the ground where it vanishes into dust. He does not rush. Each volume he touches gives him something, an image, a scent, a whisper. The books do not speak loudly, they do not need to. Their power lies in their persistence, their quiet assurance that even forgotten things still carry meaning. From a high shelf, he removes a codex bound in waxed bark. Its cover is rough, marked with lines like tree rings. He opens it slowly. Inside, the pages are filled with drawings, simple, hand-drawn images of birds, leaves, sky. No text, just silence made visible. He remembers the person who made it. A traveler who had stayed one winter, whose voice was soft and eyes always watching. The drawings are gentle, intentional, filled with the quiet love of someone who listened more than they spoke. He closes the book and returns it carefully to its place. Then, for a while, he just stands still, letting the hush of the library fill his ears. It is not absence of sound, but the fullness of quiet things. The occasional creak of wood, the rustle of parchment shifting slightly in the breeze, the far-off call of a bird, softened by the stone walls. He climbs a narrow staircase to the loft, where the light filters in through colored panes, fragments of old glass that once adorned a chapel. The colors scatter across the floor, ruby, amber, sea green. He sits among them, letting the shifting tones bathe his robe. A book lies open nearby, not one he placed there. Someone must have left it, perhaps a guest long gone, or perhaps it wandered on its own. Its spine is cracked. The writing inside is a mixture of languages, Latin, Old English, a few symbols he doesn't recognize. He reads none of it, but he listens. His eyes drift over the letters like water over stone. Meaning is not always in understanding. Sometimes it is enough to witness. He sits there for a long time, watching the colored light shift slowly across the pages, then across the floor, then onto his hands. The sun lowers, its warmth gentle now, diffused. Downstairs, the fire has dwindled. The scent of warm wood lingers, and somewhere beyond the shelves, a breeze stirs a wind chime carved from antlers and glass. Its sound is thin, distant, like a memory calling from across a great lake. He rises slowly, leaving the loft just as the colors begin to fade from the floorboards. The light has changed. The hour is late, but time does not feel gone. It feels folded, like a page turned softly in a well-loved book. He walks once more down the long central aisle of the library, past shelves that breathe, past stories that wait, his hands at his sides, his breath deep and unhurried. As he reaches the door to the main chamber, he pauses, listening to the silence. It says, "You were here. You listened. You remembered." Evening falls gently, with long fingers of golden light stretching through the trees. The forest shifts, not into silence, but into a slower rhythm. The birds call less. The leaves no longer dance, but sway. Even the breeze seems to walk instead of run. Inside the library, the air has cooled. The bookbinder lights a few beeswax candles. Their glow soft and steady. The flame flickers briefly, then steadies, casting long shadows across the wooden beams. He moves through the space slowly, checking the tools, covering the workbench, folding the linen cloths used for cleaning brushes and binding covers. There is no hurry. Nothing demands completion. The day has already given what it needed to. He pours himself a final cup of tea, lavender and lemon balm, still warm from the hearth, where the embers glow quietly beneath a bed of ash. He carries it to the reading chair near the front window, where the last light lingers. A book rests on the table beside it, one he has read many times. Its cover is soft from years of use. He does not open it. He simply lets it rest beneath his palm, its familiar presence enough. Outside, dusk gathers in the branches, the shadows deepening to blue and indigo. The trees become outlines. The garden is a memory. The light that remains glimmers like old thoughts, floating on the edge of dreams. He finishes his tea and rises, blowing out the candles one by one. Each flame surrenders quietly, its wisp of smoke curling upward before vanishing into the dimness. The scent of melted wax and lavender deepens, wrapping the room in comfort. He climbs the narrow staircase to his small chamber, tucked beneath the eaves. The bed is simple, a frame of oak, a woolen blanket, a single pillow filled with heather. On the windowsill, a piece of quartz catches the fading light. It glows faintly, like the memory of day. He places a candle on the bedside table and sits for a moment, unlacing his shoes, folding his robe, smoothing the blanket with his palms. There is something sacred in this nightly ritual, a way of saying thank you, not with words, but with presence. The forest outside grows quieter. Somewhere an owl calls, soft, distant, familiar. He listens for a while, eyes half closed. His breath deepens. The day releases him gently. He lays down, pulling the blanket up to his chin. The sheets are cool at first, then warm with his body's remembering. The candle flickers beside him, its light low and golden. Before he sleeps, he lets his eyes wander across the ceiling beams, following the lines and knots like paths in a map. Each night they tell a different story, or perhaps the same story, just seen from another angle. The flame wavers slightly, then steadies. He watches it a moment longer, then with a gentle breath, he blows it out. Darkness settles, not heavy, not thick, but like a soft veil. He closes his eyes. The sounds of the forest remain, but they are muted, woven into dreams before they even reach his mind. Time stretches here, not linearly, but in soft loops. Memories and moments fold into one another like pages in a well-read book. He drifts, not away, but deeper. Somewhere below, a pine cone falls to the ground with a single soft thud. Somewhere above, the stars blink into view, quiet and countless. In his sleep, the bookbinder does not dream of grand things. He dreams of small, meaningful acts. The sound of paper turning, the warmth of tea, the curve of a letter on vellum, the scent of rosemary on his fingertips. Each detail a gentle affirmation. This day was enough, and so he sleeps, wrapped in stillness, surrounded by books that remember, trees that hold the wind, and a silence that is not empty, but full of everything that matters. Outside, the moon climbs higher, casting its silver light through the upper windows of the library. It brushes the spines of forgotten books and gleams faintly on the brass corners of the binding press. The forest watches, but makes no sound. The story has paused, the page is turned, the light has softened, and now you too may rest. Let the quiet of the library hold you, let the hush of the trees surround you. Let the rhythm of breath and page and silence guide you softly into sleep. The bell of the forest rings no sound, only stillness, only peace. Let it carry you, let it keep you, until morning.